Welcome to this Way to Fire video where today it's me, Andy, and I am joined by...
Ciaran.
Claudio.
Oh, Hal, hello.
Gosh, there's some brief introductions, weren't they?
Jesus. I was wanting a full spin. Hello, I'm Ciaran.
So yeah, we're doing something slightly different today. So we are talking about Five Parsecs From Home, which is our new obsession. The four of us have got a new obsession with this game. So what is Five Parsecs From Home? So it's brand new to, certainly to me and Hal. I think Ciaran probably knew about it and Claudio has known about it for a little while, but it's effectively a solo role-playing game by Nordic Weasel games, and it's had two previous sort of self-published editions, and it's just being released as a PDF and soon to be a book by Modiphius, who are well known for producing a wide range of role-playing games, things like Acton, Cthulhu, Conan, stuff like that. So well-received games. And they've taken a little foray into Five Parsecs From Home and producing a nice shiny new book, and that has caught our attention. So Claudio, maybe you've played Five Parsecs From Home before, so do you want to give us a little bit more about what it is?
Yeah, sure. I've started playing it about a year ago. I think during the first lockdown here in Germany. And I was obsessed with Star Wars, so I wanted to get my Star Wars miniatures on the table with solo gaming, and found Five Parsecs, which is, as you said, some kind of role-play game, but still a tabletop game, war game. So it's some kind of mix-up, and you have many elements where you have to roll and on tables and think about your crew. You have 6 crew members to start with, and you try to earn as many credits and survive as long as possible, and get more famous while playing out the battles on the tabletop with your minis and your terrain and everything. But most of the time, I think, for me it was at least, that I sat with the book open and had to roll on many, many tables for gear, experience, and so on. And that's a part which, it sounds crazy, but it's really, really fun because you never know what happens. You have so many choices. You have so many enemies you can get. So no game is like the other, and it's completely random. And in the end, it's really interesting how you get a story out of rolling dice, so many dice, because it just unfolds itself before you. And the gameplay itself is pretty simple, because you use only d6 to roll, and you don't have hit points or anything like that. Just have to hit an enemy, roll again for the toughness or damage, and if it's above the toughness, they are dead. Easy as that. So it's really, really fast. It can be really deadly too because of that. And so you can recruit new crew members, and you should always count or have the possibility that your beloved crewmates, where you just made up so many stories and backgrounds and information, just die or leave your crew, because it can happen that you have a crew event where one crew member just doesn't feel it anymore and walks away. So many, many options. You play on the tabletop, but you roll many things on the table with your book or your PDF.
Cool. I think that's really good, Claudio. Thank you. I think it's that role-playing bit, isn't it, which is the bit that strikes me as being the most interesting. As you say, that the gameplay it's not simplistic, but it is simple, isn't it? There's not a lot of, there's not a lot of detail. You basically roll a 6 and you modify it by if you've got a bonus to your shoot, and that's it, sort of thing. So the games actually, I mean, they can play in 20 minutes. Of actual sort of gameplay, which when you're playing solo is fine actually, because you could actually bang through several games in an evening if you wanted to, or a day or something like that. So I think it's that element of all this prep before, after a battle that makes it seem more like a role-playing game, really, because if any of you have played role-playing games, a lot of the enjoyment, as it were, particularly from a GM's point of view, comes from actually doing all the prep before randomly, rather than partly the playing, but actually all that prep before, and then seeing it come off and screwing over your PCs. That's where the joy comes from. So, Hal and Ciaran, what do you like about the 5 Parsecs From Home? What ticks your box, as it were?
For me, it's as we discussed there, or you mentioned, it's narrative. It focuses on narrative, and as you said, rolling on tables and whatnot, it builds that story. As you say, it's maybe best suited to people who would be GMs or games masters. You're getting to actually play in the world that you're creating, rather than just creating a world for other people to play in. You're getting to maybe experience it more yourself. You mentioned there that the rules are simple, which I'd agree with, but I'd kind of almost describe it as it doesn't get in its way of itself. You know, it allows the story to flow. It doesn't keep you tied to the table too long if you don't want to. And as you say, you can fire through a couple of games a night, which means you're getting to evolve that story quickly rather than waiting for another week or etc. for.
Which is a big thing when you think about it's designed for campaigns. If you wait too long in between, there's always that, I can't be bothered this week or something like
something
that.
crops up that goes, something got in the way. Whereas this, and as Claudio mentioned, just rolling all the tables, there are lots of tables. And I think for this 3rd edition, he's added, even the Nordic Weasel himself has added in more content into the tables and whatnot. So there's more now than there was before. But again, it doesn't get in its way of itself. There's lots of options that kind of gives you an interest and hook every time, and something you can feel a narrative spinning off. And that's primarily where my gaming interest is in storytelling effectively, and getting to play stories on the tabletop. So that's what kind of I knew about it in 2nd edition, hadn't played it. When I seen the 3rd edition, and I seen looked kind of all sparkly and new, and with lockdown and being primarily solo playing, it's like it was kind of a perfect fit, almost a perfect storm. So I've enjoyed it, and I'm really enjoyed the storytelling aspect of it.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I've been looking more and more as time's gone on into more narrative games. I prefer that kind of role-playing side of things. I always prefer role-playing games over war games anyway. So I've kind of been experiencing, I've come across a Hardwired, which is a cyberpunk solo game where you play against an AI that you kind of move yourself. I've played Zona Alpha by the same author, Patrick Todorov. Yeah, Patrick. So, and again, that's similar, but that's kind of like set in a Chernobyl-esque sort of near future. And really, this kind of hits another great, area of my interest. I mean, I watch programs like Firefly, I watch programs like The Expanse, and they're all about little crews that you get to know over the course of the series as you're watching, and it kind of unfolds the stories week by week, and it almost feels like a little episodic week by week, kind of your each snapshot is an episode, and I really like that. I really like as well that the time on the table, the time with stuff out is fairly low compared to a lot of games, and also it's in the campaign side of things, the narrative side of things takes a little bit longer, but you can have that on your phone. And what I tend to have, I've got the PDF on my phone, I've got a dice roller on my phone, I've got my notes open. So just when I've got 5 minutes, I'm sit in the car waiting for the kids to come out of a club, I'll sit and roll a couple of events, and then just jot down the note, and then it'll build up as I go. And then I've got my campaign turn done, and it could be done over a week, or it could be done in half an hour. I just love that flexibility.
I'm not with you on the PDFs though. I hate it. There's so many charts. It's like, which bloody direction was that chart? Stuff like that.
I had to print it out. I just and I used the PC and I use PDFs all the time, but I just needed to get physical paper over to the table, so I did.
Yeah.
I love PDFs. I've used PDFs for a long time now, and I'm quite used to bookmarking the tables I need and using the search facilities and stuff like that. So. For me, I quite like it.
I don't have any problems with PDFs, but I don't do that fancy stuff with bookmarking. I'm just
what are they?
The whole time.
Control F.
I've got this little strip of leather stuck in my phone.
I just do it like the worst way ever, but it works, and I have the free time in the evening with no kids, so maybe that's that's why I'm lazy.
No, I think I get what you mean there, Hal. I mean, I was looking for it the other day, just looking at all the different sort of creatures that you can come across and trying to. The other really nice thing from my point of view is I've got loads and loads of science fiction models, mostly Mantic models and stuff, because I've got loads of them. And now I'm trying to fit models from different games that I already own, because I don't want to spend money on, I mean, it's miniatures agnostic, so I don't want to spend money on new stuff when I've got so much from various board games and minis I already have. And I'm going, oh, okay, I read that fluff for them. Okay, so that fits this type of model. Okay, so I'm sort of like, I've then digging around in a box of models that I hadn't chosen to paint. So loads of Dreadball ones, for instance, have suddenly jumped up the queue and gone on round bases, because I've got 3 teams painted for Dreadball. I don't really need any more ever. Yeah, I own about 15. And it's like, well, I'll take some of those models and they can be my Solus or whatever it is. So I really like that free world aspect. And I was, for the similar reason, I've got certain types of terrain, but I was painting some terrain just yesterday, which is like a scrapyard sort of terrain, because the next time I go to a world, well, I can dress it like that, because it doesn't have to fit in a certain thing. It's completely free form to what you want it to be, and say, okay, like you say, you're playing Star Wars, you can put down all your Star Wars stuff and you can have a Tatooine, but then the next planet you can be your Hoth, and you've got all that stuff. It's completely and utterly up to you, which is, they give you a little bit of direction on some things, but it's so vague that it doesn't really matter. I think there's a real sort of opportunity for you to add that narrative feel in the direction you want.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, because I, the same as you, have an enormous Dead Zone Warpath collection, mostly Mantic, but still I wanted to play it in the Star Wars universe, or at least looking like that. It's our universe, but it's okay, it fits, because it's so generic and you can have so many options where you, and I own a 3D printer, so for me it's more of a motivation to get those models printed I wanted to have, but maybe I don't have a use in Star Wars Legion or something like that, character models. So I get those out, print them, paint them, and I can use them, and that's an awesome aspect. And then again, I can mix in my Dead Zone stuff if I want to. So the possibilities are just endless, because those lists, I tried to go through and see which unit could be a stormtrooper, etc. But it's such a massive list. I just wing it. Once I roll the enemy, I will think about what I need.
What they could be.
Maybe it's easier or more chaotic. Who knows? We will see.
Because there are so many options for weaponry, and where the scene that you go on, the missions that you go on, what your patron sends on, or other sort of things, or who you come across. It's hard to fathom all of them, and of course you might read them all and prep stuff and never come across these things, because you've not rolled that number. So I think that it's a real. It reminds me a lot of those sort of role-playing games where you have the random encounter table. You're going through the dungeon, and it's like, well, what's coming up today? Oh, it's goblins today. It's like, okay, what's in the next room? Oh, skeletons. So it's sort of completely, almost freeform, unprepared for it, and you're like, well, okay, that's what we got. Let's deal with it. And that's really refreshing, I think.
Yeah, definitely. And it's got quite a nice mechanic as well with rivals, so you can your gang can make enemies as you're going on your crew, and they can show up more regularly. There's a dice roll you do before each battle to see, is this going to be a rival battle or not, and I quite like that as well, because that kind of gives you a bit of an investment in the world building side of things again as well.
And even the amount of table space it actually takes up. You can play on 2x2. You can keep it restricted down. So, and that means you can change that world, that the look and feel of the world pretty easily, because it doesn't take that much terrain to change it. You're not 6x4 like big war games. It's nice and small. You can expand it if you want to, but it's definitely fits for on the fly gaming.
Yeah, that's very accessible, isn't it? You got a bit of Mantic terrain, or a bit of Star Wars terrain, or some core space, or something like that. You only need one box worth of stuff, really, and you've got your game addressed, haven't you?
You can even use your fantasy terrain. I think for my first game, last year I set up a village with Viking houses, where like it was Firefly-style backwater world.
Yeah.
And there were, I think, mutants as enemies, and I used the Plague stage 3 enemies. So you can use whatever you want, and even if you only have enough terrain for one big wargame table, you can use every other bits, only the industrial bits from the table, or only the wood bits. And so even with not that much on your hands, you can always make the terrain and flavor completely different.
Yeah. I mean, it's an interesting time for a game like this to come out in a new rendition, and I'm sure Modiphius have picked it up for that very reason, that solo gaming is obviously around for a little while, has been popularized in the last 12 months, shall we say. But it's also an interesting time because obviously Stargrave is dropping now, effectively.
Yeah.
And Stargrave is very much obviously Frostgrave stroke, more probably Ghost Archipelago than Frostgrave actually in style. But and it looks great, and I'm going to play that as well. But what I perhaps prefer more with 5 Parsecs than Stargrave is very much about your captain and your co-captain, and the rest are just sort of grunts. Whereas everyone in your squad of 5 Parsecs has a personality and has the ability to progress, to lose a limb, to up sticks and leave, to gain experience. So they're all valued members of the team, which I suspect when one does leave or die, it's going to hurt even more.
Yeah,
you're
going
to feel more visceral that you've lost someone that you were investing. Oh, I'm working at experience. I won't spend it yet, because when they get to this level, then I'll be able to. Oh no, he's dead.
It's funny you say that, because my captain, after this first battle, he's gone really maudlin and got upset by all the violence, and he's gone off and gone drunk. Really? So he's missing his next game because he's drunk somewhere. So my next game I'm playing without my captain. So that's not going to happen. That's not going to happen in Stargrave, I don't think.
Yeah.
No. Yeah.
The choices are also very flavorful. One big plus is that the things you roll out, the RPG style, not like gear and weapons, but even those, they have always a story with them, always a narrative. And it's not only gameplay, it's more the story, and then you get the gameplay thing, like an extra credit. And it's much more immersive because it helps imagine things you already got in your mind, or maybe it just crystallizes afterwards. And I think that point is really helpful. And for me, and I think that's why I'm really glad we're doing it as 4, because last year I tend to, when I was playing, to take pictures anyway the whole time and write down what happened, like a short battle report, and post it on Discord or Facebook or whatever, just because you want to tell someone what you're doing. You want to tell your stories. And if you're
less of a loser if you share, is it?
Yeah. And if you're talking about it, you're like, the world building is even better then, because you have more imagination while talking, while writing it down. And so I'm really glad we're doing this, because it's just that immersive gameplay is then even better if you can share it.
Yeah. They really play on that as well. Sorry, Ciaran, I was just saying, they really play on it as well in the way that the book's written, because they've got these story points, and they actually call them story points, although I completely forgot to use them in my first game. And you can see that they've set them up and called them that on purpose, because they modify your dice rolls or whatever. So, that shot you fluffed. And the reason they've obviously called them that is that that's for you to add the fluff as to why that story point. So it's not just like spending a point. You've spent a point to say, oh, and then a wisp of wind just blew across in front of you, and that distracted the vision of the person shooting at you, or something like that. So I really like the fact that they've drawn that in, exactly as you say, Claudio, to sort of make you add these elements and embellish your own game, because there's no one else there. It's only you, so you've got to add this in. Otherwise, it'd be a bit straightforward and linear, wouldn't it? So,
yeah, definitely.
Sorry, Ciaran, you were going to say.
Yeah, no, it's just it gives you that space, as you say, to fill in those gaps, rather than it's kind of a fine line between putting someone on the reels and having to, this is the story, and it's going to be the same story, the same 5 scenarios every time. It's like, no, you can you can just tweak something every so often, or it gives you enough of a hook to go, hang on, this fits with that miniature, or this fits with that TV show I watched, or this fits with an idea I had from that book I read, and suddenly your own ideas can all spill into just, as you say, kind of small narrative hooks that the various tables or whatnot give you, which is what, and as Claudio says, being able to actually share things, because it's one thing playing a solo game, but then if it's just stays in the kind of confines of the room it's played in, it's, well, you might not have played it at all. For all the world knows. So being able to actually share it is and the group, I think, Claudia, was the Facebook group there last year? Was that a thing where the Five Parsecs group, was it an active group last year, or is that a new thing? Or
I think it wasn't as active as now, because Nordic Weasel, the creator himself, is more active on Discord and not on Facebook anymore. So I'm doing it every time when I get into a new game. I join a Facebook group just to get a bit more like, you always have questions and whatever, and you want to get your hype up. And if you see all the other beautiful painted models or gray models that are just getting a bit of board time, it's always nice. But there wasn't that much, I think, active posting there. A few people, but now I think it really the new beginning with the 3rd edition.
It's good to have that kind of home to actually share stuff on, because it's a solo game. You create your own stories, but be able to share it with like-minded people. And fair enough, we're doing our own kind of shared campaign itself, but then be able to share our story with other people is it kind of adds to the whole thing as well.
So I think we've hinted a couple of times then at what we're doing slightly differently. So although it's a solo game, obviously we want to play together, don't we? No,
yeah,
but that's actually a little bit difficult, to be honest. Not only now, but also there's some geography involved. So myself and Hal, we are near Manchester in England, but Ciaran's across the water in Northern Ireland, and Claudio is across the water in the other direction in Germany. So it makes it a little difficult for us to meet up and have a game. So we came up with I think, pretty smart idea, wasn't it? Pretty smart idea. We all collaborated on this idea. So what we're going to play separately in our solo games, but we're going to play in a shared universe effectively, because it's an open, well, there is a fair bit of fluff as to unity and that sort of thing, and the fringe and stuff, but we are creating our own bit to play in, and we're going to sort of share about our experiences, and we won't exactly come across each other, but we might hear rumors of each other and follow in the tracks of each other. So who wants to Hal, do you want to sort of explain a little bit maybe about where we came to this?
I think that kind of building together is really important, and because we're all stuck desperate for a game and desperate for that kind of like gaming connection, I think this really kind of is going to fill the void for the next couple of months until we can actually get out and play some games. But carving out our own little part of the galaxy, we said we're going to set it in a sector. That's going to be kind of ours. We've each come up with some named worlds. We've each got a home world where we're starting. And we're going to kind of set our adventures in this sector. We've also thought about maybe having kind of some overarching enemies as well. So the sector is going to be mainly controlled by the Unity, but there's going to be a few other people at work in the sector as well. There's the Oracles of Mako, who are going to be like a religious group who are steamrolling into worlds and taking them over. And there's also kind of a rebel faction that we've just kind of talked about today, really, and kind of put together, who are kind of working against Unity, and they're kind of supported by the criminal elements who want to get rid of this oversight and get rid of Unity so they can do what they want to do without all restrictions or with the police banging down the doors, things like that. So I think that works really quite well, and I think Ciaran's been really instrumental in kind of like putting this together for us in kind of, well, for firstly an amazing map which looks fantastic, and maybe I could let you elaborate on that, Ciaran, there.
Yeah, well, this began because of the geographic distances and whatnot, and I'm interested in shared experience, shared storytelling. So the idea of the campaign on the map, I've always had to say I have a history with Mantic anyway in terms of campaign, online campaigns or worldwide campaigns, doing websites for them. So I have some tech background in terms of how that's done. But being able to tell or create some kind of shared, connected story has always been it's an interest of mine in the background anyway. And this just felt like a perfect vehicle for it, or a perfect test bed for something that, how big or what could we do. And although we're starting out fairly small, I can see how we could easily add on as weeks go by to add on. Oh, hey, this little story hook there. We could add that into our role for this, that, the other. But in terms of what we're doing at the start, in terms of how this is actually shared, the three kind of factions that Hal outlined, we're going to be vying for control of each planet in the sector in the system. And as we do our jobs and we determine who that, if depending on the job type, be it a patron job, a rival job, an opportunity job, and we'll determine who that kind of owner of the job, which faction they're aligned to, and if we win if we win that mission, that'll boost the kind of the control element of that planet towards that faction. And I'll do up I've got some pie charts going on in the background with Google Sheets where we input our shared data, and I hope to spin it up onto a kind of a bit of a web page where we can see the back and forth of these factions controlling different planets. And ultimately we can just kind of share that story, but we could maybe even push it as far as saying, I want to annoy the homeworld that Andy comes from. He's a Unity guy. I can go there and I can do jobs for the I'm
not a Unity guy.
The ARC. But that's where we can kind of push it to. We're kind of staying simple at the start, because I'm keen to make sure that I, for one, stay motivated with playing games and getting stuff on the table. But there's so much space is a big place, both in terms of our narrative campaign, but also in terms of what we do gameplay wise and shared gameplay wise. There's a wee map. I'll maybe do a separate video, and I'll talk through the map and show the map in a video, kind of where we can actually pick our little corner of the galaxy and tell our stories in.
I know we're sort of overcomplicating it with this, but I think the reason we've done that is that we have our own little messenger group, and just chatting about this is adding it's a great game anyway, don't get me wrong, but it's adding so much more, and we're constantly chatting all the time at the moment, to be honest, about, let's tweak this bit, let's tweak that bit. And I think, like you say, if Ciaran comes to somewhere I've been and messes around there, he might meet the same patrons that or maybe one of my patrons is now a rival of his or something like that, bringing all of these elements that across the game. And it also allows us to effectively act as the games master to other people's games as well. So we could also say, actually, on this planet now, this is happening. So this little weird random element is now going to be affecting everybody's game or anyone's game on this planet or something like that. So I think those sort of elements being added in, which are just pure fluff, really, but might have in-game effects, they're just going to add so much more, because I know what's going to happen. Claudio's going to come and piss on my chips every bloody moment he gets, for instance.
It's going to
and then I'll go back to somewhere I've been. Yeah, I know, you'll have stolen my bloody patron or something, or turned him into a rival. It's just the guy he is.
Yeah, I can't help myself. I think now I have a first go. Thank you for that.
I wonder why he asked, what was your home world? Like, straight away, it's like, which is home?
Target acquired. But yeah, I think that sort of element of interacting, like I say, even though we're not playing together, the world that we're building effectively, or the sector that we're building effectively by chatting amongst it, is going to be where we get as much, if not more, enjoyment actually than the rolling dice bit, because the rolling dice bit is the 20-30 minutes you spend on your own, but actually you spend the hours chatting about it with each other before and after that. I think it's a way of us getting more and more and more basically from this one game, as long as we can sustain it. That's the key thing.
Yeah, hopefully with us all kind of as you say, kind of hooking into each other's stories, it provides motivation for somebody else to keep going, because you're not just doing it on your own. It's not just me and my story, and I'm going to spit my story out onto a Facebook group, and people just read the story and they don't feel anything about it. We're going to actually riff off each other effectively. Not the idea of shared games mastering effectively. We're all, because we've all got a chance. We've all created our own. We've all got a subset of plans to create for ourselves, rather than one person creating a world and telling their story and having participants in it. We're all getting to put our own piece of this jigsaw together. And
in amongst that, we'll do these chats perhaps occasionally as well. We'll obviously be posting on the Way to Fire Facebook page and in the Five Parsecs Facebook page, and some videos might come out as well. So some of us will do some videos, maybe not all of us, but so you'll see some of the games. But I think we'll probably do some sort of summary thing in some way, shape, or form, I guess, at the end of each round or something like that, won't we? I don't quite know how, but we'll do something to sort of, and I hope that bit will not only give us something, but also those people who are watching or following and stuff like that will be able to sort of join in as well vicariously through this sort of stuff. So it's like, I can't believe that Claudio screwed over Andy again. It's like the third round running. It's like,
Hal's captain's in the pub again.
Yeah, again. Yeah. He's drinking space booze.
Get off the hooch, Captain.
Soon he'll have to sell his ship to get more booze money. And
yeah.
You know what? That's probably an option that I'll roll stupidly.
Yeah, he'll be bumming a lift to another planet.
Everyone avoids Hal's planet.
Yeah. You can actually get a lift to another planet without having a ship, can't you? So if you are at rock bottom, you still do it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think this is obviously a way we're trying to sort of add as much value as possible to the game, and I think there's a huge amount of potential sort of fun for us in doing that. So any other sort of things you want to talk about the world building that's going on?
It's just I just kind of reiterate that we're keeping it fairly simple initially, to not get bogged down in details, because I would go overboard with details. I've got ideas coming out of my head, and it's like, you know what, just peel it, just rein it back. Let's play some games. And I know, Hal, you've done up some kind of overarching kind of objectives as to get, for one of us, not to necessarily win the campaign, but to have bragging rights. So that there, we've got a schedule of games to play, and we want to play games effectively, not just tell stories, because that's easy to do as well on your own, but it's actually keeping each other going. Do you want to go, Hal, give us an idea of what those objectives were?
I can't remember what they were now. I in my head I had them like like when you're playing a computer game, you've got you kind of achievements.
Yes.
And you just unlock different achievements. So I've got so many credits. Okay, that's an achievement. I'm rich. I've paid off my ship. Tick. I've done a quest. Tick. I've got a crew member who survived 10 battles. And just those sorts of things, and just so we can track between us how each of us are doing. And like you say, it's not for any competitive means, but it's just kind of a bragging rights of like, I've paid off my ship already. That sort of thing. Like I said, it was a few days ago since I did that list. I honestly can't remember what I wrote now. So if you can remember, that would be good.
I do. I have it up on the Google.
Oh, well, there you go.
You mentioned everything but one, and that was like, I think, getting a patron on another planet. So the first one who gets to another planet, because you have to pay something to get to another planet. You have to pay for fuel and maybe a license. Maybe the conditions are bad there. So you could tend to like stay on your planet where you know your patrons, where you know your quests, and you have no problem. So that's more an extra incentive to travel a bit more. So I like that one especially. So, and I think one thing that was missing in second edition, or there were many little additions there and extra PDFs. But one thing the third edition has in the end is some more structured games you could play with more, with less randomness, and just build how you want. And that's also something we could maybe, if we have made 10 games and getting a bit bored, we could add something that everyone has to make a major heist or whatever. It's there. I haven't read it. So there are so many possibilities also in the book to use for our system, for our world building or galaxy building. So I'm really looking forward to delve a bit deeper after a few battles, after getting a bit more of a hang about all the tables and the gameplay itself. And there are many options. So yeah, I'm thrilled.
Yeah, they're in the appendix, aren't they, as sort of additional stuff. But you're right; they seem to have a lot more structure to them. They're sort of designed around the quest element, aren't they? But I think we can just rip them out, and I think that's exactly what you say. We can come up with something, and we can also, it's our sector. We can screw it over if we want. We can have an invasion appear if we just decide we want one and stuff like that.
Extra galactic invaders get screwing all over.
Totally.
Once I'm losing and losing the bragging rights, I think I will go for the galaxy-wide invasion.
A claim invasion. Cool. So, I think you can tell that we're all quite enthused and excited by trying out 5 Parsecs From Home. I'm not sure if all of them, because you said there was a few PDFs in the previous one. I'm not sure if all of that stuff's been wrapped into this one book or whether there's other potential bits, aren't there? But I guess that depends on what Modiphius wants to do.
But I've heard that so Nordic Weasel is still working on new editions or maybe even porting over. There's also a Patreon where you can donate some money for that and get some PDFs for free. I did that last year, and there were things like psychics, psychic powers, and so I'm looking forward for what will come in the next months, and we can incorporate it later if we want to. Anyway, so yeah.
Well, I think we've got enough
for now,
chance.
I think we've got enough.
Cool, great. So I think we'll probably just wrap it up there, actually, as a sort of an introduction to what we're planning to do. As I've said before, there'll be some videos coming out on the channel as well, which some are already up, and some will carry on going up, and we'll probably end up doing another chat of these every now and again to talk about how it's going, or maybe some sort of summary thing in some way that we'll do, building around Ciaran's cool sort of world sector that he's created. I think the key thing is to keep us engaged and keep you engaged, so that we're all enjoying this. And I think we'd all agree that it's the first PDF for a while I've read straight through in one day. So I think we're all pretty enthused by it, and hopefully.
Yeah, I know. I was straight in the garage rummaging through boxes of minis, going, "Oh, well, I've got bits of Star Saga here. I've got some old Necromunda models here. Really? I've got Dreadball robots here." It's like, it's brilliant.
Well, I didn't have any sci-fi on my painting desk until I got this PDF, and now there's only sci-fi on the painting desk. Cool, great. So thanks very much, everyone, for checking in. Please check out the other Weight of Fire videos. Check out the Weight of Fire podcast and the Weight of Fire Facebook page. And also check out the Weight of Fire Hobby Hangout Facebook page, which is a new thing for us, where you can post up what you're working on, all the miniatures that you're painting, games that you're playing, ideas that you've got, and join the conversation. So thanks very much, everyone. Take care and bye.
Bye.
See you.